Breaking news. Guys, would you believe that Singapore is technically more developed than the UK, United Kingdom? Yes, Singapore is technically more developed than the United Kingdom. And today we'll be making the comparison. I will show you the differences between Singapore and the UK, how Singapore is performing more better than the UK. So let's dive into it. Now, this data is from worlddata.info, and this is a comparison between Singapore, the United Kingdom, and Singapore. Singapore is a country in the Southeast Asian region, while United Kingdom is a country in Europe. I think Northern Europe. Yeah. So we go to the comparison. Now we start from the general information. You see that in region, United Kingdom is in the Northern Europe, while Singapore is in the Southeast Asian region, and the area is United Kingdom is 243.610 kilometers square. That is a 243,610 kilometers square in area size, and Singapore is 719 kilometers square. So Singapore is very, 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 very much more smaller than the United Kingdom because it's just a state that's separated from Malaysia actually. So their land mass is very small. They are actually trying to reclaim some land from the sea now, and then because they have reached almost to the maximum of their development, almost all the empty lands have been occupied, have been worked on. So they are trying to retrieve some land from the sea because their land mass is very small. The national language, the United Kingdom uses English, while Singapore uses Chinese. Now, Chinese is not actually the major language, the major national language of Singapore. They usually use English for all official functions, just that the majority of the citizens are Chinese, so Chinese is used in the common places. Now, the government form, the United Kingdom uses parliamentary constitutional monarchy, while Singapore uses parliamentary republic. And then independence since United Kingdom got their independence since 1066 AD, while Singapore is 1965. United Kingdom is very, very old. Of course, they are the colonizers of the world. And the capital of United Kingdom is London, while Singapore is Singapore. It's a very small country, so they don't really have states. Singapore doesn't have state. And then the population of United Kingdom is 63,327,000 people, while Singapore is 5,454,000 people. And the inhabitants per kilometer square is 276.4, which means 200 an average of 276.4 people live per kilometer live in per kilometer square in the United Kingdom, while 7,584.9 live in per kilometer square in the Singapore because their land mass is very small, so there's more people in a particular location. That's why they have a lot of high-rise buildings because they need to utilize the little land they have. And the life expectancy for males in the United Kingdom is 79 years old average, while in the Singapore is 82 years old. So you see, life expectancy in Singapore is actually much more higher than the United Kingdom. They are much higher with about 3 years plus in the Singapore than the United Kingdom. That's 1 point for Singapore. And then the average age for people in the UK is 40.6 as of currently, and the average age is 35.6 in Singapore, which means Singapore has more younger generations than the United Kingdom. And the birth rate of United Kingdom is 10.2%, while Singapore is 8.5. Of course, they are very small population, and Singapore people are very hardworking. They are giving less births now. They are having less marriages. One family can decide to have just one kid, or at max two. So that's the factor there. And then the death rate in United Kingdom is 10.4%, while in Singapore is 5.2%. Now we can say the population has contribution to this, but we can see that death rate is almost two times lower than the United Kingdom. So people are much more liable to live longer in Singapore than the United Kingdom. That's another point for Singapore. And migration rate is 3.59%, while Singapore is 4.22%. So you see that more people are migrating to Singapore than the United Kingdom actually. Now, the quality of life. So, the political stability in the United Kingdom is 76%, while in the Singapore is 83%. So, that's about 7% much more higher, which means Singapore has much more political stability. There's no shakiness in the government than the United Kingdom. That's another point for Singapore. And then the civil rights is 90% in the United Kingdom, Singapore 89%. So just 1% less. That's another point. You see that civil rights is also quite acknowledged in Singapore. That's another point of showing the level of development in a country. And the health is 78 in the United Kingdom, while Singapore is 79. So you see that the health in Singapore is much more better than the United Kingdom with 1 point. And the climate is 6 in the United Kingdom, while it's 45 in Singapore. So the climate is considered to be very good, better in Singapore because there's no snow, there's no too cold. It's always heat, rain, and normal weather. So I think more people prefer that kind of weather than cold and snow. So it's far more higher than the United Kingdom, and cost of living is 13, while Singapore is 49. That's a lot, which means cost of living in Singapore is far more expensive than the United Kingdom. So that's another point of development. And the popularity is 44 in the United Kingdom, while 42 in Singapore. So United Kingdom is a little bit more popular than Singapore because, of course, everybody knows about United Kingdom. They are the colonizer of the world. They literally colonize almost all the countries in this world. So they have to be that popular. But you see that Singapore is quite popular also. They are just 2% lower than the United Kingdom. So because they are developed country also. And now we go to the economy. You see that the currency, £1 is 100 pence. One GBP is Great Britain pound, and £1 is 100 pence, while one Singapore dollar is 100 cents. So United Kingdom use pence for their smaller money, while Singapore use cents. Cents is more like US. And then you see unemployment rate in the United Kingdom is 4.5%, while Singapore is 3.6%. So Singapore has much less unemployment rate than the United Kingdom, actually. So that's another point for Singapore. And the inflation rate is 2.52% in the United Kingdom, while 2.3%. So Singapore is also lower in inflation than the United Kingdom. Another point for Singapore. And you see, cost of living is the measurement of 100%, it's 107.86%, and the Singapore is 75.03%. So this is much lower than the United Kingdom, which is actually okay and better. Commercial taxes and contributions. So you see in the United Kingdom, they charge up to 30.6% of income tax, while the Singapore is only 21%. That is 9.6% much more lower than the United Kingdom. So you see, you pay a lot more tax in the United Kingdom than Singapore. That's another good thing also because it helps to reduce the burden on the citizens. And another thing is average income in the United Kingdom is 44,480,000 USD per annum, while in Singapore is $64,010. That's a lot. So you earn more money in Singapore than the United Kingdom, actually. So that's another very, very big point for Singapore. And corruption index is 26 in the United Kingdom, while 17 in Singapore. So corruption index is far more lower, 10% much more lower in Singapore than the United Kingdom. That's another very good point for Singapore. And another thing is gross domestic products in the UK is 3.1 million USD, and then per 1,000 inhabitants is 46.51 million, and then Singapore is 396,000. So UK is 30. So UK is 3.1 million, while Singapore is 396,000, and then per 1,000 inhabitants 72. So the GDP in the UK is far bigger than Singapore, of course, because UK is very much big, and they've been trading before Singapore was born. And gross national product is 2.9 million, while Singapore is 349,000. Yes, and then export goods is 874,000, while Singapore is 733,000. So you see that the exportation of Singapore is almost equivalent to uh, the United Kingdom also. And then this is 134.55 million for export per 1,000 people, while the UK is 12.99. Of course, the population has some contribution to this. And then imported goods 898,000, while Singapore imports 609,000 million. So, which means that Singapore imports less than the United Kingdom. So, and another thing is infrastructure. Let's go to the roadways. The UK, they have about 394,428 kilometers of roadways. And then about per 1,000 inhabitants, there's 5.86 kilometer ways. So, but Singapore is just 3,500. And then per 1,000 inhabitants, 0.64 kilometer ways. So, which means because Singapore is very, very small and it's just about 7,000 kilometers square or so. So, that's the contribution to these numbers. And the harbors is 1,249, while Singapore is 3,321. So the harbors per the roads is less in the United Kingdom because, of course, there are more roads, while in Singapore it's more because there are less road with more people. That is the factor. In the passenger airports, there are about 59 airports in the United Kingdom, while Singapore is just two. Or that's the Changi airports and all the terminals. So the airlines are very small, very, very small. So they don't have too many lines to build too many airports. And these two actually serves more better. And actually, these two has held the record for the world's best airport for, I think, 2 or 3 times already, far more better than the United Kingdom, all their airports combined. So you see that Singapore is far more developed than the UK. Energy balance. Energy consumption in the UK is 309.2 billion kilowatt hours of consumption in the UK, while the Singapore is 47.69. So far more lesser in Singapore because, of course, they are much more smaller. The energy production, they produce 318.20, while Singapore produces 48, which is far more enough for their population. And the energy exports, UK exports 2.15, while Singapore doesn't export any energies because, of course, they need more for their own local citizens. And I don't know if they even import energy from the Malaysia. Okay, they don't import anything. UK also imports energy from about 19.7, while Singapore doesn't import any energy. So they generate their energy locally. The ones they use, they generate it in their own land, which is very good point for them. And then CO2 emissions, carbon dioxide, these are 348.92 in the UK, while it's 47.38. So there's less CO2 emission in the Singapore than the Britain. Now let's go to telecommunications. Now there's the international dialing code for the United Kingdom is +44, while the Singapore is +65. And the internet domain is .uk, while Singapore is .sg. So, and the landlines in the UK is 32.192 million, while Singapore is 1.887 million. And then the mobile cellulars is 79 million, while Singapore is 866 million, while the internet server is 8.1 million, while Singapore is 1.9 million, and internet users 63 million internet users in the UK, while Singapore is 5 million. So, which means that almost more than 90% of Singaporean citizens are online. They have access to internet. So, and then broadband internet is 27 million, while Singapore is 1.5 million. These are a number of people that are using broadband internet. And then the healthcare system, which is very important. The hospital beds per 1,000 inhabitants in the United Kingdom is 2.46, while hospital beds per 1,000 inhabitants in Singapore is 2.49. So you see, there are more beds for people in the Singapore, hospital beds for people in Singapore than the United Kingdom. That's another very good point for Singapore. And another thing is physicians per 1,000 inhabitants, 2.81. Singapore is 2.31. There are less physicians also. There are less physicians in Singapore than the UK. And the diabetes rate is 3.9% in the United Kingdom and 5.5% in Singapore, which means Singapore people have more sugar problem than the UK. Tuberculosis is 0.06% in the United Kingdom, while 0.48 in the Singapore. There are more tuberculosis cases in Singapore than the United Kingdom, and tuberculosis cure rate in the United Kingdom is 78%, while 79% in the Singapore, which means the cure rate in Singapore is much more 1% more higher than the United Kingdom. And the smokers are 15.4% in the United Kingdom, while 16.5% in Singapore. Yes, actually, this is true. There are a lot more smokers in Asia than Europe. In this Malaysia, they smoke a lot. In Singapore, they smoke a lot. And the Singaporean government have put a law actually that if you throw cigarette butts carelessly on the street, you will get arrested or you get fined. If you spit on the streets of Singapore, you get fined or you get arrested. So Singapore law is very strict on littering. And we go down to climate. The daytime temperatures in the United Kingdom is 12.9 degrees Celsius, while in Singapore is 31.5 degrees Celsius. It's much more hotter in Singapore than the United Kingdom. Yeah, it's always hot. The weather is always hot in these Southeast Asian countries. And the nighttime temperatures is 7 degrees Celsius in the United Kingdom, while it's 25.1 degrees Celsius. That is almost the low that it can ever go in Singapore. And the water temperature in the United Kingdom is 10.1 degrees Celsius, while in Singapore it's 27.8. So the water temperature is much more higher in Singapore than the United Kingdom. And the rare humidity is 85% in the United Kingdom, while 84 in the Singapore. So humidity is much lesser, it's 1% lesser in Singapore than the United Kingdom. And rain days is 13.0 days, and then 11.4 Singapore. And sunshine hours per day is 3.8 hours, and then 5.8 in Singapore, while it's 3.8 in the United Kingdom. So which means there's more sun in Singapore than the United Kingdom. The native language in the United Kingdom, there's a 97.3% of the population speaking English, while in Singapore is just 29.8 people. And Chinese, there's none. And in the UK, there's none. And then Singapore, there's 50.8%. So over half of the population of the Singapore speaks Chinese, of course, because it's majority of the Chinese. And Malay, there's no data, while in Singapore, 11.9% of the people speak Malay. Tamil is an Indian language. In Singapore, in the United Kingdom, no. And in Singapore, 4.4% of the people speak Tamil. And Hakka, that's Chinese. There's 1.2 people speaking Hakka in Singapore and none in the United Kingdom. And Hindi, that's India. There's 1.2 people speaking Hindi in the Singapore and none in the United Kingdom. And Kimri is 0.9% in the United Kingdom. That's like a local dialect there, but none in Singapore. And Gurli is 0.1% in the United Kingdom and none in Singapore. And other languages is 1.7% in the United Kingdom and 0.7% in the Singapore. And religions, Christianity, 67% in the United Kingdom, while 18.1% in Singapore. And Buddhism is not, there's none available in the United Kingdom, while 39.9% of the population in Singapore practice Buddhism. Buddhism is like a local Chinese religion, So, and the majority of the population in Singapore are Chinese. That's why there's a much more higher people practicing Buddhism in Singapore than other religions. And non-denominational, there's 25.7% in the United Kingdom, and there's 16.4 in Singapore. Islam, there's 4.4% in the United Kingdom, and there's a 14.3 in Singapore. And Taoism, there's a non-available in Singapore. This is a Chinese religion also, and there's 11.3% in Singapore. So Hinduism, there's 1.3% in the United Kingdom. There's 5.2%. So there's more Hindus in Singapore than the United Kingdom. And Jewry, there's 0.4% in the United Kingdom, and there's none available in Singapore. And Sikhism is 0.4% in the United Kingdom, and there's none available for Singapore. And other religions, there's 0.8% in the United Kingdom and 0.8% in Singapore. So that's it, guys. That's how Singapore is technically more developed than the United Kingdom. So a lot of people do not know this because everyone believes that UK is number one, of course, because they colonized a lot of countries, even the Singapore themselves, even Malaysia. UKs have their hands in these countries. But with recent technologies and developments, UK is lagging behind. The technologies that were used to develop UK have been outdated, and they have reached the max of their development. So Singapore is like the new nation. It's like the new generation of development, and the developmental technologies that are evident in the country are latest technologies, latest inventions. That's one of the reasons why Singapore is becoming much more developed than the United Kingdom. So Singapore now is considered a developed country also. They are actually far more developed than Malaysia. Some Malaysian politicians actually do go to Singapore for medical services. So guys, thank you for watching. That's my comparison with United Kingdom and Singapore, and telling you the reasons why Singapore is technically more developed than the UK. Thank you for watching. I hope you like this video. If you do, please share the video and follow my Facebook page. Thank you guys. Until I see you again. Bye-bye.